Hey guys, it's Milton's here, and this is Work Mount Head Explosion Release Part 1. So because it's a new series, I want to see how you guys like it. So I will be setting up a like goal, which I haven't done in a while. The like goal will be 100 likes, so get it to 100 likes, and you guys will have a Part 2. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So without further ado, roll the intro. Naruto Uzumaki was a strange person. His higher than normal IQ of 163 might be a factor, but probably the strangest thing about him was the mouse on his hands, one in the center of each palm. The old man, that being the third Hokage, had said that they were a part of his bloodline, Baka Explosion Release, which he had inherited from his father. He didn't show them to a single person outside of Hiruzen, opting to hide his extra mouse underneath bandages wrapped around his arms and hands. The reasons being that people saw them, they would hate him even more than they already did. But after 4 years of constant contempt aimed at Naruto, he stopped caring what other people thought. The tipping point when he stopped caring about what other people thought was roughly about a year ago. Flashback, 1 year ago. Naruto was in one of Konoha's many training grounds, trying to figure out what his bloodline could do. First was examining the initial stages of it. Basically, his bloodline allowed him to secrete an explosive liquid from the mouths and sweat glands on his hands. The liquid was extremely combustible, and almost as soon as Naruto had secreted it into the air, it exploded. Naturally, because of the destructive nature of his bloodline, someone, most likely Hiruzen, would have told Naruto that explosions were dangerous. But surprisingly, or unsurprisingly, Naruto was immune to the heat explosions generated, but not to the concussive force. So while holding an explosive tag wouldn't hurt him physically, it would throw him away, and landing after being thrown so far away might hurt Naruto. The concussive force generated by the blast could be used to propel Naruto into the air, or blast people away from him. This was rather useful, but like all things, it has its disadvantages. For one, the blast only reached about 6 feet away. This, along with the fact that the liquid was almost immediately exploded, really limited the range potential of his bloodline. This problem was solved with what Naruto had dubbed as a carrier material. A carrier was simply a material that could absorb the explosive liquid that Naruto had secreted, and hold it until Naruto decided to detonate it remotely. The material Naruto found worked the best was clay. Just plain simple clay. It absorbed his explosive liquid quite well, and was easily moldable with his chakra. Well, not easily, more simple. All Naruto really had to do was put clay into the mouths on his hands, then channel chakra into them while kneading his explosive liquid into them. Though it may have been simple, it was far from easy. While simply kneading his explosive liquid into the clay was simple, being able to mold the perfect shape with his secondary mouse of clay. Being able to mold the perfect shapes of clay with his secondary mouse was hard. It was like trying to paint with one's feet, but Naruto refused to have anything less than perfection. So, day after day, he had come to a training ground and practiced, like what he was doing currently. Naruto reached into the pouch attached to the right side of his waist. When he pulled his hand out, the mouth on it seemed like it was chewing something, and after a couple seconds it spat it out. Naruto looked down and gave a dissatisfied sound as he looked at the piece of clay in his palm. It was about 3 inches long and was supposed to be its shape as a dog, but it was misshapen. The face was ruined, and one of the legs was larger than the rest, and longer too. Naruto then concentrated on pumping more chakra into his dog. The entire thing swelled up like a balloon, but still proportional. From 3 inches long, the clay dog grew to 6 inches long. Naruto then dropped it on the ground and concentrated on the dog, and thought, "Get closer to that log." The dog almost immediately sprang to its feet, and bounded as best as it could on disproportionate legs over to the log in the center of the training ground. Now comes the hard part, Naruto thought. The way he detonated his clay creations was simply by imagining a balloon swelling up until it exploded. The problem was that the farther away his clay creation was away from him, the harder it was to feel, and by extension, detonate. It was still doable, just harder. After a couple seconds, Naruto felt a familiar tingle in his chest. He opened his eyes and embraced that feeling. Shibuki, Naruto murmured as the clay dog glowed white for a fraction of a second, before exploding. The word Shibuki was Naruto's detonation word, as it helped him focus on detonating his clay creations. Naruto had chosen it specifically because it meant splash, which Naruto had referenced to an explosion. It's like a splash of colors, Naruto had once told Hiruzen. What he had said had been met with a sort of grimace, mixed with a smile from Hiruzen. But back to the explosion. The grass in a 12-foot diameter of the log was charred. The log itself was also charred, but not destroyed as Naruto would have liked it. No matter what he tried, shaping his clay creations differently, or even adding more explosive liquid to the clay, the force behind the remote clay explosion always stayed the same. If Naruto had tried to blow up the log by simply secreting his explosive liquid from his hands, it would have blown up and taken the log with it, sending it in chunks multiple places. But the remote clay creations always didn't have as much kick to them. Well, I should probably head back now, Naruto said to himself. It was getting kind of dark. He started to pack up when he noticed me out of the corner of his eye. It was almost like someone was watching him. It was just barely there, just for a second, before it disappeared. Naruto shrugged it off and continued packing up. When he arrived back to his apartment, he immediately realized that something was wrong. There was someone, or rather, multiple people in his apartments, hidden by the inky black shadows. Naruto noticed as he walked through his apartment and into the kitchen, they followed him, perfectly silent. As he walked towards the light switch, Naruto unclipped the pouch from his waist and placed it on the counter. Walking over to the light switch, Naruto flicked it up and turned on the lights. "Can I help you?" Naruto said, turning around. Behind him were 5 shinobi bearing the leaf headband. Chunin, by the looks of things. 3 guys and 2 girls. "Look at the fox boy acting all tough," one of them said. "Well, you better be scared, because we're gonna end you once and for all." Naruto quickly scanned their faces, looking for any distinguishable features that he would recognize. When he found none, he nodded to himself and spoke. "As expected," Naruto said quietly. "What's expected?" A different one said. "Oh, nothing. Just the fact that you're not really distinct. You know what I mean?" Naruto said. "If I saw you someplace, I'd probably forget you in a few minutes. You're dispensable, I guess is the way you could put it." "Why, you little," one of them said before being cut off by another. "Kimura, relax," the parent leader said. "He'll die today. Any last words, brat?" Naruto nodded and spoke. "Yes, I do," he said, while discreetly forming the half-ram hand seal. "Shibuki." The pouch Naruto had placed on the counter glowed white for a fraction of a second before exploding with a loud bang. When Naruto had walked into his apartment, he had immediately started priming his clay. He also positioned himself right in front of a window, so that as soon as the clay exploded, the force would send him through the window. Already in motion, Naruto pointed his palms downward and left a twin explosion, slowing his fall. It was a rough landing, but he managed it. He then pulled out bandages and started rewrapping his hands before he stopped. Those people had tried to kill him, not just beat him up. Those were the same types of people he'd wanted to appear normal to, that he was trying to gain recognition from. "Why do I care what they think?" Naruto thought, looking at his hands. The mouth opened and closed a few times. Naruto looked up again, before smirking at the burning building. Those 5 would have survived. The Anbu were quite rapid when responding to these kinds of situations, but it might leave some scarring. They wouldn't soon forget what happened when they tried to tangle with him. Well, Naruto thought, time to visit old man for another apartment. Also, pretty lucky my apartment building is vacant except for me, otherwise it would have hurt some people. Not that I would have cared too much, I mean, they probably deserved it. Flashback, end. Naruto was currently outside an apartment building. Not his, though. There was someone that lived here that he came to visit. They were probably the only person beside Hiruzen who wasn't rude to Naruto. This was proven by the fact that they had saved him from a couple mobs a while back, though he probably didn't remember. He placed a letter that he'd written by the door and was about to walk away when he heard, "Can I help you?" a voice said from behind him. Slowly turning around, Naruto looked towards the person. "Hello, Yuhi-san," Naruto said in a somewhat resigned voice. "I need help with something, and you're probably the only person beside Lord Third who would help me. You probably don't remember, but you saved me a couple times a while back from some mobs." After a few seconds, a smile made its way onto Kurenai's face. "Actually, I knew your mom," she said. "She was my Genin Sensei, but I always tried to help you out any way I could. So what can I help you with?" Anyway guys, thanks for listening. I hope you see you guys next time.